Hi, my name is Dacey McCrae, and this is my To Kill a Mockingbird speech. My topic is racism. Thank you. Racism is everywhere, in the streets, in the schools, even in our homes. With all this racism everywhere, there's no hope for the children in this world to grow up without some form of racism helping to form their opinions and views on the world. In life, we are raised on racism and prejudices. As we get older, we grow away from them and grow into our own opinions. These are some of the times that I have experienced racism in my life and how it has affected me. Some of the things that can really shape racism in a kid's life is when your family is racist to or about your friends. Families can also be racist to people who have done them wrong, which sets up racism for entire races in a child's life, and not just for specific people. I remember one time I was talking to a few of my older family members about a few of my friends at school, and maybe having them over to meet my family. Well, two of those friends weren't white, and my male role models in the conversation were being racist towards my friends' names and making false, racist, general assumptions about their background and how they must act because of their race and gender. This particular incident offended me greatly. To hear my family being so racist to my friends, the ones I hang out with every day and knew well, was appalling. The fact that my family, my male role models, could be so entirely judgmental and full of assumptions because of their names, races, and gender was shocking. This opened my eyes to a new kind of racism in the world. In the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, a character named Bob Ewell, a white man, felt that he was superior to the entire African American race. Bob Ewell believed that all Negroes were foul. He inadvertently hated all colored people. Even though Bob lived in the town dump and the colored folks lived in nicer homes than Bob, he still felt superior to the inferior creatures he called Negroes. This shows racism in Macomb County. Two children, Jem and Scout Finch, were raised by their father Atticus, who was not racist in the least. But living in a diseased town, a racist opinionated town, and having a non-racist father made their youth confusing and almost seemed to make them grow up faster when it comes to forming their own opinions on the colored folks. And I say it positively affected them and set up a good foundation for their futures. Another time when racism has affected Jem and Scout's life was when they found out about the half-black and half-white children at the trial of Tom Robinson. The children experienced conflicting views on the biracial children, and the whites didn't want them because they were black, and the Negroes didn't want them because they were white. These conflicting views confused Scout, but didn't really seem to faze Jem, as he was used to the town's disregard and racism towards the opposite races in Macomb. In my life, my family and I were hanging out with my sister and her boyfriend, and we were talking about basketball. Some racist comments that the teams were solely made up of African Americans were made, and if they were to throw some white guys on the court, they would consider playing. Well, there were some negative reactions to those comments, and that it shouldn't matter who's on the team. And the racism stopped in that situation. This incident didn't necessarily affect me, but it definitely reaffirmed my opinions of the people being racist in this conversation. I also have experienced racism at school. One time a teacher at one of my old schools always pointed out two students in my class and made examples of them, and singled them out when using examples of traits in people. This teacher always picked one of the two students because one of them was African American and the other was Hispanic. This struck me as odd and affected me negatively because it was like my teacher was encouraging racism. Usually teachers are role models for students, and they are supposed to be unbiased. But this teacher wasn't being unbiased, they were being racist. I call it racism because they never picked any other kids for examples in the class. In To Kill a Mockingbird, there was racism when Calpurnia took Jem and Scout to church with her, and as they approached the church, some of its members were blocking their entrance to church and were saying things like, "You ain't got no business bringing white children here," and, they've got their own church and this is ours, and stuff like that. So, in this case, the Negroes were being racist towards Jem and Scout by saying that they had their own church and that they didn't belong at the Negro church. Later on in the book, Scout was telling Atticus about Calpurnia's church and how Calpurnia had said that Scout could come and visit her at her house sometime. Well, Aunt Alexandra didn't like that and said, "You may not." Well, that was Auntie showing racism towards Calpurnia by acting like if Scout went over there to our house, bad things would happen and the family name would be disgraced or something. I think this affected Scout the same way it affected me. I think that she was shocked because one of her role models, just like one of mine, was being racist, when usually people children look up to aren't racist. I feel like finding out that Aunt Alexandra could be racist when she was actually a lady and a good role model for Scout was, well, striking and surprising, just like it was shocking to find out that my teachers were racist sometimes. So where do you think racism is? The answer is everywhere. In life, we are raised on racism and prejudices. As we get older, we grow away from them and grow into our own opinions. To me, that statement holds very true. Racism is in our streets, in our schools, and even in our homes. Whether the racism is coming from peers, family members, or even our own teachers and role models, racism is everywhere, and I feel that I've proved that. I also feel like I have proved that children can form their own opinions, separate from everyone else's, if given the time and opportunity to. Having racism in my life overall hasn't affected me negatively. I feel like the racism has taught me who I do and do not want to be in my life. I believe that I have found a way to ignore the racism that surrounds me and have found a way, much like Jem and Scout Finch, to form my own positive and non-racist opinions on the world. I feel that I'm a better person because I've learned lessons from my role models, bad examples, and that I am a stronger person because of it. Thank you.